All right, so right now I'd like us to cross over to Homa Bay County and talk to our reporter Kevin Ogutu just to bring us up to date with what concerning what we expect to hear from the Homa Bay law courts. Ogutu, good morning. And thank you so much for joining us here in KTN News Center. What can we expect from the corridors of justice this morning?
Well, a very good morning, Brenda. Actually, right now I'm at the Homa Bay High Court, where any moment from now we expect Michael Oyamo, who is Migori Governor Okoth Obado's personal assistant, to be brought here. This follows the directive that was given yesterday by Senior Resident Magistrate Lester Simiu, when, of course, Lester Simiu refused the bail that refused the application that was given by the prosecution, asking for 10 days to have Mr. Oyamo in custody as they finish up the investigations into what caused the murder of Sharon Otieno, the Rongo University student. So right now, that's what we are expecting. Remember, this is just one of the suspects that has so far been arrested, the other one being the immediate former MCA for Kanyadoto County Assembly, one Mr. Lawrence Mula. So as we speak right now, that is the march that we anticipate here. Remember, earlier on, the prosecution, there is some of the reasons that the prosecution had advanced for asking for continuous putting into custody of Oyamo was that they still needed time to analyze some of the data collected from phones either belonging to Mr. Oyamo or those associated with him. They also mentioned that they needed time to also analyze DNA samples that were taken from, of course, the late Sharon Otieno together with the unborn baby who also died, of course, in the process after the death of the mother. And on the part of the defense, they claim that the procedure that the prosecution the investigators were taking was not right, given that they had extracted DNA samples from their client without their knowledge. So for this and among other reasons, the senior resident magistrate Lester Simiu refused to grant the 10 days asked by the prosecution and ordered that Oyamo be produced in court within 24 hours from yesterday. So that brings us to where we are here right now, where, of course, any moment from now he will be coming here. And Brenda, I can see quite a number of family members and the members of the public already right here at the Homa Bay High Court are ready to get to hear what the prosecution will be charging, or the charges that the prosecution will be preferring against Michael Oyamo, and of course what the defense will be saying regarding this. Remember, up to now we expect either Mr. Oyamo to be granted bail or, depending on what the prosecution, the charges that prosecution will prefer against him, then of course from there we'll get to know how we move forward as the trial on this particular murder of Sharon Otieno kicks off in earnest today. Of course, yesterday it was supposed to start, but of course it was a false start, given that instead of preferring charges against him, the prosecution had an application asking for continuous putting into custody of Mr. Oyamo. Brenda.
Kevin, you're talking about probably Mr. Oyamo being released on bail. I don't know whether you've talked to the family members, whether they attended the court session yesterday. What were they saying concerning the proceedings, owing to the fact that they've maintained that Sharon will only be buried once her killers are brought to book?
Well, yesterday, if you could remember, Brenda, there was quite a bit of drama outside court. And of course, when it became apparent, of course, people somehow got to understand that he was going to be released from police custody. And then that attracted quite a lot of drama and most of quite outcry. And most of this came from the family members. So, of course, their feeling is that the prosecution, of course, needs to be given leeway to do what they do, as that is what appears to be what can actually provide the justice as they see it fit. So from the family side, of course, they are looking at this with keen interest, trying to see whether, of course, justice will be done, given that, of course, they are child or their daughter passed on under such mysterious circumstances. So that was the much that we were able to read from the family faces regarding this particular development here at the Homa Bay locals. Again, something else, Brenda, is that remember there was a bit of twisted information here regarding what Oyamo has told the investigating officers so far, and of course it was surprising that he claimed to be also a victim of kidnapping, that he was also as well kidnapped on that particular day. And so this is information that the investigating officers didn't really believe so much, and that, of course, what led to his being put in custody. And then again, something else here is that there was a bit of heightened security of Mr. Oyamo while in custody. This can be attributed to the directive that was given yesterday by Deputy Registrar Lester Simiu, restricting the number of people who can be able to see Mr. Oyamo while in custody. Of course, this follows the recent incident where somebody claiming to be a KDF official managed to get access to Mr. Oyamo while in Homa Bay Police House, and this is something that, of course, created a lot of scare among the family members, the defense, and of course the prosecution, how somebody could do that. So of course, right now, the access to Oyamo while in custody, in as much as he could be maybe leave this place a free man after this particular session, his security while in police custody is something that is being taken very seriously, Brenda, as of course this particular case here continues.
Ogutu, I don't know whether you've managed to talk to maybe the prosecution team, because yesterday they were asking the court to give them 10 more days so as to detain Mr. Oyamo in terms of investigations, because they still need to analyze the data that from Mr. Oyamo's phone and also the DNA samples. But my question is, should the court decide to release Mr. Oyamo today on bail, does the prosecution think it will somehow interfere with their investigations?
Well, of course, Brenda, that is one of the issues that were raised yesterday by the prosecution while they asked for the court to continue, to allow them continue keeping Mr. Oyamo in custody. Of course, as mentioned, one of the points that they raised was that they were still analyzing data collected from the call records, call data, together with the SIM cards. Of course, they said there were 2 phones with 3 SIM cards that were directly associated, that directly belonged to Mr. Oyamo, and of course a number of other gadgets that they were analyzing. Remember, it also became apparent in court that while the post-mortem on the body of Sharon Otieno was being done at Oyugi's level 4 mortuary, Mr. Oyamo had been transferred from Homa Bay police station to Oyugi's police station, where it became apparent in court that saliva was taken from him for the purposes of extracting DNA. So, of course, these are some of the analyses that are ongoing, and which, of course, the prosecution wanted the time to be extended so that they can conclude this. But on the part of the defense, they said if they have all the things that they've extracted, remember, the homicide team had a session with Mr. Oyamo right at Homa Bay police station on Sunday. This was a meeting that started at around 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to about 9 p.m. Quite a really rigorous session, if you may ask me. So after this investigation, whatever they collected, and remember this particular interrogation of Mr. Oyamo at the Homa Bay police station by the homicide team was done in the presence of his lawyers for quite a bit of that particular time. Then, of course, the argument by the defense here was that if they have got all that they needed, then, of course, they just need to analyze what they can do and then see what kind of charges they will be preferring against their client. So, of course, we had the prosecution on one hand asking for more time, so we are actually waiting to see what they have here, whether they'll be having charges against, whether they'll be preferring any charges against Mr. Oyamo, or maybe they have an application to give. Remember, this matter was now moving from the resident magistrate, Lester Simiu, to now the High Court here to be handled at this particular level. So, of course, this is something that we are taking a keen look at to see how it unfolds. Brenda.
All right, thank you so much, Ogutu, for that detailed report. You've been speaking to our Homa Bay reporter, Kevin Ogutu, when it comes to that developing story, the probe on the death of a Rongo University student, Sharon Otieno. And of course, as soon as we get the live coverage of the court session in Homa Bay law courts, we shall cross over live and listen in. Now, still